when you're dealing with maybe that type of person versus somebody that comes in and they're like, let's go, Bob, I'm ready.
Yeah.
What's the kind of like the difference there? Do you enjoy working with the harder people to work with that may not have their mind right and you're like looking at it as a challenge?
Yeah.
Or, you know, kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Like the difference is, I'm sure you see all types of
Sure.
motivation in people.
Yeah. Well, to all my clients listening, you're all my favorite. So just putting that out there, you are all my favorite, saying there. With it, you know, a wide variety of people that I work with, because I work with kids and senior citizens and everyone in between, and athletes and people with all kinds of health issues, diabetes, cerebral palsy, cancer, you name it, it's all across the board. So many different fitness, health backgrounds, and then, you know, personalities to go along with it. So,
and not to mention body shapes and sizes.
And yes, absolutely.
So out of all the things that we talk about with impact on your individual life or somebody else's life that maybe we don't talk about enough is health, fitness, wellness, all that kind of stuff. And today we've got my good friend, Bob Kaczmarczyk, on the show. He's the owner of Heavy Metal Fitness, a fitness studio in Highland, Indiana, right off of 41 and Main Street. And I personally worked out there a handful of times. It's a little far away from my house now, so I haven't been there in a while, but I will be back soon. But when I lived closer, I was there pretty frequently. And him and his wife, Tracy, run the show there, and they have just an outstanding studio. When you walk in, it just has this crazy feeling of like, man, this is just super cool. It's a great experience. It's almost like walking into a Disney World of a fitness studio. But Bob has come a long way. He's been a trainer for many years, and he tells the story of how he opened up his fitness studio, basically going from one fitness studio, training there to another, and then eventually starting his own thing and doing it that way. But I do believe Bob, you know, I've been to a couple of sessions where it's a group session, and he has a pretty diverse group of people that actually come and work out with him. One of the things that, in my opinion, in my fitness journey that I believe is extremely underrated is designing fitness goals and strategies around the person specifically, not just like, oh, well, here's what works for like these 20 people and it should work for you too. They really do kind of collect all the information from you, figure out what your goals are, and build it around you. One of the things I enjoyed, obviously, was I got to do one-on-one workouts with them. And that was fantastic. They pushed me to the limits that they felt made sense for me. I'm not the type of person that I need, you know, somebody on a Peloton screen saying like, you got it, let's go, it's the next hill. That like, I'm not that type of person. So they realize that, they know that they need somebody to kick my ass into gear, and then I can finish that set or whatever it is. And Bob does a really good job of kind of like feeling out that sort of thing, the EQ of working with people. And he talked about how, you know, obviously heavy metal being, and you'll see him on the show. He's got a mohawk, tank top with a Blink-182 shirt on, and looks super badass. But one of the reasons why I was so kind of attracted to his gym is because I'm into that same genre of music. And we talk about music a little bit and how it can impact people in a positive way, and just kind of, you know, have some fun with that. But Bob is just a down-to-earth person, runs a great show here, and we took a lot of lessons away. We talked about health a little bit, talked about music, talked about how he opened his studio and that sort of thing. So you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this. I'm very, very happy to introduce my guest to you, Bob Kaczmarczyk. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Impact Network. I am Josh Culler, your host, and today I have a very special friend of mine. Bob, I've never had the opportunity to pronounce your last name.
Yeah.
So pronounce it.
The big secret to my last name, because it has no vowels in it. Okay. It's got 37 letters, long Polish last name. It's kind of like Kaczmarczyk is the best way to. Yeah, Kaczmarczyk. So it's Kaczmarczyk. That's good. Easiest way, and there's there's tons of different spellings, and people get it confused and everything. So that's the best way to go.
All right, so Bob Kaczmarczyk.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
If we say it fast, then we actually get it right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Right.
So Bob along with his wife Tracy are the owners of Heavy Metal Fitness, a fitness studio out in Highland, Indiana, which I've had the very great pleasure of being able to work out with you guys a handful of times when I lived a little closer. Now I live 45 minutes away, so that's no fun.
It was awesome having you.
But like I told you before we started recording, I will make my way out there with Gabby, and we'll come work out again at the mosh pit session.
Well, actually, this surprise, Adam and I wanted to surprise you. We're not doing an interview today. Actually, I'm taking you through a workout.
Oh, you are?
On the podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a good thing we're joggers.
Yeah, absolutely. So get ready for that. I hope everyone enjoys it. So
it's going to be, hey, I'm always ready.
Awesome.
That's why I always wear joggers, because I'm always ready if I need to go, lift some weights or do some cardio.
And you got the metal shirt on. That's required.
That's right. So Bob is I think probably more than seeing you at your fitness studio, I've seen you at music festivals or
concerts.
So it's so funny. I can always spot you out, and it's anytime Gabby and I go to one, we're always just like, make sure we look out for Bob.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Yeah, the best part, like, it wasn't planned or anything. All of a sudden, like, boom, there you are. Yeah. Even if it's out of state. So.
Oh yeah, I know the one in Oshkosh.
Yes, absolutely.
That was like 2 or 3 years ago or something, where it got rained out.
Yeah,
that was rough.
But we saw some great shows.
There were some great shows.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm really excited to have you on. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
I kind of want to start off with that. If you guys haven't caught already, is that Bob is one of the most chipper, happy people I've ever met in my life. And like I said, anytime I see you, even out in the wild per se, not even just in your studio, you always got a smile on your face, always big hugs and warm greetings and everything. What keeps you ticking, man? Like you got something in you that, like, I would say describe it as joy.
Yeah.
Like, talk about that.
That's it's a great question. And the answer is probably the exact opposite of what you'd think from the other question. But it really stems from my experience growing up and things like that. With going into, you mentioned, having the personal training studio and being a trainer and things like that. I wasn't always a trainer. I was an electrical engineer for a decade, downtown Chicago.
I know that.
And so had quite the career change.
Yeah.
And basically where that stems from is being completely unhappy there. I kind of got into engineering just because I was kind of good at math, that kind of thing.
Safe.
Yeah, it's, good career. I had some family members who did a variety of things like that. And just, that was the next step. And honestly, like, I got into it because I love video games and computers and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to design those things. And like, oh man, maybe I could make video game systems and stuff. So kind of got into that. And, it's a long story on this, but basically kind of long story short, eventually got into a different type of engineering just because that market had crashed at the time when I graduated college. Sure. And got into more of like the building engineering and stuff.
About what year was this?
That was right around the turn of the century, actually, because I graduated right around 2000.
Gotcha.
And got into that. So I got into working and stuff, and we did building design, and eventually I worked in downtown Chicago. It was most of my engineering career, and kind of like what I did, the actual work, doing crunching the numbers and putting plans together, and we worked on really cool projects downtown, all the big sky rises and sports stadiums and stuff. So it was cool, but just the corporate lifestyle was just not for me, just sitting in an office and doing that. And what made matters worse is that even though I liked the job, the business politics and just the way things were, it just built and just grated on me. And I was not meant to be there, but I was kind of in denial of that because I was supposed to be doing this, and this is the thing, and I'm supposed to like it and stuff. And eventually it just got worse and worse, and the stress and the anxiety just built up like crazy. Eventually developed more of a depression from it, and I have a family history of it.
So you went through a lot of mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And even it stemmed from back in my high school days. I had early stages of depression. It wasn't a good time for me. And then things got better after that in college. But then going back into the workforce like that, it kind of reared its head again. And it all, like, I was in denial for a long time about it. And the big turning point was during that time, I worked out and ate right and stuff like that. So I was in decent shape. But I went to donate blood one time, and they took my reading. And for someone who wasn't overweight and, in good shape and everything like that, my reading was like 160 over 100. And it was all from stress. And I'm like, this is killing me. Like, I cannot do this anymore. So My girlfriend at the time, now my wife Tracy, who co-owner at the studio, when I finally opened up to her really about it, because I was really keeping things in, and eventually with us talking, she's like, well, you like working out. Why don't you take this into a career?
Yeah.
And at first I'm like, there's no way I can't be a trainer. I can't, I lift some weights here and there, but that's not something I can do. And as it really sunk in, I thought, maybe she's right. Like maybe this is the way to go. So, so it's all kind of stemmed from that, going into a training career to kind of take back control of my life.
Yeah.
And, building in, and it's an absolutely amazing career and extremely rewarding, and got me to a much better place. So in combination with her and friends and family and support, and it was a scary transition. I mean, the first couple of years of doing that, it's, I left a secure, high-paying job in a bad economy and stuff, and, to go through all this risk, and it was challenging, but, eventually got there and built things up. So going back to your original question then, with, again, I appreciate the compliment of, saying that I'm always joyful and chipper and things like that. And it's, going back to, reclaiming all of that and having a newfound appreciation for things. So that's really where it stems from. And it's
Powerful.
Luckily, I have, good friends and family, and we had a lot of loving support growing up despite challenges that we've had. And, that was a good foundation for me to start to question things and being like, this is what I need. But all of that love and caring and that kind of environment allowed me to, move past that and get to where I am. And so that's where it comes from. And I'll be honest too, it's not something that is like a regular thing. It's, the past 4 years, for example, with trying to run the small business during a pandemic and then having a baby with it there, like there's a million things to be thankful for with our son's health and the studio's success, but getting to that point, there have been so many challenges. And like, I've had plenty of moments where the stress and the anxiety and things came back. And like, even to this day, it is so difficult to do. But, with that support and encouragement from friends and family and pushing forward, and even inspiration from clients, it's, finding those moments of joy and those appreciation and realizing like, okay, these bad feelings aren't, that's not who you are. This is what you have to work through and push past. And so it's part of my job then as well, to inspire people and be happy and, show that appreciation for all the great things that I have in life. So if that'll make sense, that's a long answer to that question.
One thing I want to point out is, so like when you're going through those recently, there's a few other questions I have after this, but
sure.
Obviously, like I'm a small business owner too, and I completely understand. Like the last 4 or 5 years has been weird. Yeah, like it's not even been like hard per se, but it's been really weird.
Yeah.
I think no matter what industry you're in, I'm a marketing agency owner, right?
Yeah.
And you own a fitness studio, so
right.
It's just, there's commonalities in all business, but like when you started having some hard times, you talked about pushing through it. What are some ways that you like how did you push through those things and not like resurface back to maybe the old Bob and the way that you maybe would have handled it 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Was it based off of like having that healthy relationship with Tracy and then, your friends and family and just getting your mind right, or what was kind of the process for that?
Yeah, that's definitely a huge part of it. Something back in like my high school days or my engineering days where, I was going through those tougher depression times, it, just most people just were not educated in how to handle that.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately in this country, it's culturally, we're supposed to hide all that because we're weak if we show all that kind of stuff.
Especially in that corporate world.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. So really didn't have any tools to deal with that specifically there. So, after I had made changes in my life to become a trainer, it wasn't just, getting certified as a trainer and getting more workout experience. It also, kind of evolved into, all encompassing about how do I take care of myself better, and, how do I eat better, and how do I take care of my mind better? So I gradually started to, read more books about meditation and self-help and you name it, things like that. And mindfulness is, generally the term there. So reading more about that, about how to better take care of myself. And it's a long process. It's an ongoing process, but that's something that I've had, over the past 15 years of being a trainer is developing that and practicing that more about, meditating when I first get up in the morning and just how to be more present with things and how to take care of my mind better and how to deal with stress and, taking those things that people consider negative, whether it's anxiety or frustration or anger, and channeling that into positive means and, using all those techniques. So that's some of the biggest stuff that has helped me recently because, again, those things, we're all human beings. That doesn't go away. The past 4 years, I mean, I've had near panic attacks sometimes with the way things have been. And it's so challenging to deal with, but that's something that has given me a better foundation to be like, okay, you go through those moments, whether it's a few minutes, whether it's a few hours or a few days, and then you start to go back to those techniques. And even if it's just deep breathing, like that's something I never did before. And that has helped me get through those moments. And then it's in combination, like you said, too, with, support from Tracy, for example, and, just being able to be honest with her and open up about things and talk it out. Even if we don't come up with answers, just talking with her is huge. She's a great listener and stuff. And as challenging as it could be to have, a toddler at home, also to those moments of just being with them in the backyard and not thinking about the business budget and what we got to do for the next quarter and where things are at and stuff like that. Just, hey, I'm playing in the backyard, feeling the breeze, and he's splashing in a pool and being like, okay, you know what? This is what's important. And it's reset me a little bit, and I can get a better foundation to tackle the problems one at a time for where I need to be.
For sure. Being mindful and being like present with that moment that you have where that like being with my son is going to bring me joy.
Right. Yeah.
And you focus on that.
Yeah, because that's huge. Because as you know, with stress and anxiety, it's something that just spins in your mind and then keeps going and keeps going. And you can just not get off that treadmill, pardon the fitness pun, with it of that continuously going. And you can't just be like, oh, don't think about this, or, okay, I got to, it doesn't work that way. You have to do something to completely reset and shut off. And it's different for everyone, but it's whether it's lifting heavy weights or playing with your kid or just being outside in nature and stuff. And it's that reset. It's kind of like, when you're having a problem with something that you can't solve, and then all of a sudden you just like stop and you get a good night's rest. And then the next day in the middle of the day, you're like, there's the answer. I've been racking my brain all this time. And now all of a sudden I did nothing and I just figured it out. And it's like, it's because your mind resets and it's allowed to think clearly again.
I was going to say that's a process that cause the way my brain works, and you're probably similar too, is that I'm a problem solver by nature. So I'm the type of person that I don't care if it's, fixing a flat tire or if it's editing a video slightly different, making it sound better, or whatever it is. Like if I'm presented with something, I want to solve it here and now. I don't want to wait. So like I try to get it solved and nipped in the bud like immediately. Right. Sometimes then you come with those blocks and it's like, or even obviously bigger problems, like maybe you lost a couple clients and they made a big impact in your revenue and stuff like that. Like I face stuff like that. And sometimes, like you said, it's best to just step away for a minute. And I think there's a balance too, because some people will step away too far and use it as kind of like a coping mechanism. Yeah. So like ignore the problem. Yeah. As long as you're facing it in the right manner, where it's like you're stepping away so you could take a breather. Look at any athletes. The NBA finals are tonight. They're like the best players are going to get subbed out so they can take a break, breather. Yeah. Get themselves back on the court and reset, and then get back to the playing level that they need to be at. Yes. And that's a very similar way that I kind of approach solving problems too. But one thing I want to kind of like come back to is going from a corporate world into the fitness world. You didn't start the business immediately, did you? Or did you go be a trainer with a gym? Like, what was that process breaking in?
Yeah, good question. To be fair, doing that honestly wouldn't even been possible for me initially, and it would have been a really bad idea to do. So, always starting small. I had started after I left the corporate world. Basically, my last year of engineering, I was studying to become a trainer to get certified. Okay. And then it was something that I needed to do just to light a fire underneath me. I left my job before I took the final exam to become a certified trainer. and I had no plan in place whatsoever.
Jump ship.
I had to be like I need to make this happen.
Yep.
And saving up some money and things like that, of course, too. So, but I did that. I took the certification exam, luckily passed it, and then started the job hunt. I did a reset over I took the test right around Thanksgiving, and then over the holiday season, just took a break from everything. And then in January, I was kind of hitting the job hunts there. So basically, I was just looking for wherever I could work as a brand new trainer, being certified with, really no experience aside from just taking myself through workouts. So I'd started eventually as I was looking for work later that winter. Luckily, was able to get hired by one of the big box gyms, one of the big corporate ones, and kind of started there in the corporate environment. And it was a tough start because in training, it's not like, oh, you get hired and you work 40 hours a week. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be weeks and months of just doing an hour or two a week
Right.
For things. So I started there. It was a slow start. Something I did as well just to bring in extra income. I actually recertified to be a lifeguard and swim instructor.
Oh, okay.
Again, it was minimum wage work, but it was some income coming in. Yeah, so I did that. The place had a full pool facility and everything, so I was doing that. So it was something else. Like going back, here I am, being an adult in my 30s, and all of a sudden going back to my teenage job and working with 15-year-olds and things like that. But it was odd, to be fair. I almost felt more comfortable doing that than my engineering
For
job.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
So I had started there. I'd spent about a year and a half doing that. And then eventually, as I kind of evolved the situation and built up a little bit more experience. It was also, too, I was also kind of seeing the corporate environment, even there in a big box gym, was like, this is not what I'm meant to be doing. I need to be in a better environment. So eventually started looking for some smaller studios, and I contracted out. Eventually I was hired as a contractor at a smaller private training studio, and then started to build up more there. And it was definitely a much better environment for me, where I had a lot more control over things. Yeah. And I can be, much more close-knit with the clients. And then throughout that time, I was also, doing my own thing. Everything from I trained people out of my house. I went to people's homes to train. Yeah. I started, through a couple of my clients, started going to schools to work with some of the teams. There I actually started with a middle school dance team initially, got me into kind of the athletic field there. Okay. So spent about 5 years doing that, and luckily I was able to really build things up, and word of mouth got out, and people started referring me, which was wonderful. And it got to a point where things was really big, and that was great, but we needed to consolidate. So Tracy and I were talking about that, and we decided it was time to, open up our own studio. And Tracy, too, came from a corporate background, and she had also transitioned about the same time I did to kind of going to work on her own. Yes. She did graphic design, video editing, photo editing, all that kind of work, which has worked out wonderfully for the studio, because she's I'm the hired muscle for the studio, pretty much, at Heavy Metal Fitness. She's the brains, artistic genius behind it. So every graphic you see, all the social media posts, the website, she designed that. She put all that together. And we kind of transitioned there to build it all up together to finally do that. So it was about 6 years to get to that point. And now we're luckily, especially after the pandemic, about to celebrate our 9-year anniversary in June at the studio. Yeah. So, which is cool. And yeah, we've been doing that ever since. And we haven't, there's really no outside work from there. It's all the studio stuff. And huge. Yeah, it's been huge. And we have 3 staff members now. And so just kind of growing as well. We've been lucky enough over that time, over those 9 years. We expanded our space into a larger facility at where we were located. Luckily last year we were able to do kind of a renovation where we split it up even further, where now we have more private training spaces at the studio, so we can accommodate more trainers, more clients, things like that. And again, it's something we're extremely lucky to do. A lot of places had shut down after 2020 and never came back. So the fact that we were able to do that, it involved a lot of risks and, again, a lot of stress and everything. But we're happy to be able to be at that point right now. So.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the transition of being for instance, I think everybody that goes into business, they ultimately start what I call the craft. So your craft was personal training. My craft was video production, video editing, and that sort of thing. And then it evolved into a business. Now I do almost no video production, no video editing. I have a team that does that kind of stuff. You still would train. However, transitioning from like the craft to being a business owner, it can be a bit challenged. So not only do you need to stay on top of your game as being a personal trainer,
right,
you also need to be on top of your game as being a business owner. What's that process been like? You've had a longer experience than I have. So
because how long have you been doing it?
5 years now.
5 years now. Okay, congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you.
That's awesome. To be fair, and it's really hard to judge because how everyone talks about things nowadays. It's always post 2020, post pandemic,
right.
And it goes along with that. So everything that we're doing now, especially, is based on that. When we first started, 9 years ago, it was challenging, but with Tracy and I together, that made it a lot more manageable because she was doing so much of the business end on that, taking care of that, where I was doing much more of the training, and we would always ebb and flow with that. So it allowed us to work really well because she could just make sure, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed and everything, and crunching the numbers and things like that. And I can just focus on being like, okay, we need to obviously bring in,
best it can be.
Bring in revenue directly with training people.
So you were
stuff
on
like
the
that.
Operation side more than anything.
Much more so, yeah. I mean, we had to be involved in both. Tracy was doing training as well, and I had to do a little bit on the business front. But again, we struck a really good balance there, and luckily, just a lot of people wanted to train with us, which was wonderful. So we had a solid business model moving forward and stuff, and that was really good. So everything flowed pretty smooth there. There were added challenges of all the responsibilities of having that business, and that was a lot to take, but everything, despite all the work that was involved, went pretty well, and we were able to balance that nicely. So I would say the more major challenges happened after 2020 with things, and that even incorporated too also not only being a trainer and a business owner, but also becoming a father and trying to all that trifecta there was, and it still is overwhelming, and we're trying to make it work. So that's where nowadays it does get tougher because in the economic climate we have right now, you have to be constantly vigilant. You have to be pushing. You have to be out there, and that's tough in and of itself. And then also too, just with inflation and the cost of running a business now, just like everyone else out there, the cost of everything skyrocketed. But you have to manage your prices as well, and we've adjusted that a little bit, but we can't break the bank with people, but we've got to pay the bills and keep it manageable. So balancing that has been really, really tricky. And two, with that, and even with like staffing challenges that a lot of people have and stuff, we've been through a lot of that as well. And so it's still, the point, there's been times the past couple of years, still working 12 to 14 hour days or working 8 to 10 hour shifts with no breaks, and doing that throughout the week. And especially too, wanting to balance time with being able to see my wife once in a while, or hang out with her son and doing that. So that has been really, really challenging, and we're taking it one step at a time and moving forward. And we've seen gradual improvements, but it's a very slow process.
Of course. There's a lot of balance. Everybody says like, what's the work-life balance look like? And I think that's a myth in itself. There's a blend. There's obviously like, especially you and Tracy being husband and wife, being partners, and then being business partners along with it. Like it's business is the life, and life is business. Like there's always that crossover. I have a family business too. My wife works within my organization. She's not a partner, but she's one of my department leaders. And there's it's a balance, but it's like it's just making sure you're prioritized, compartmentalized, and that sort of thing, and that can be like you said, overwhelming in itself. One thing that I kind of want to like go into as well in the fitness world, and don't worry, we're going to talk about music in a little bit.
We got to get there. It's the clock is
I know we're running out of time, but we'll get to music. So when it comes to like the fitness world, obviously, there's an immense amount of fitness influencers out there, right? Like everybody that lifts weights puts out, Instagram reels and TikTok videos now. So in a world where there's a lot of noise, now I'm in the real estate industry, and there's a lot of noise in my industry as well, where there's people that they do one deal and then they think they can become a guru and a coach and that sort of thing. And in the fitness world, it's a little bit, there's a little bit of a lower gate to go into like being an influencer, you know, thinking that way. So when it comes to that kind of thing, what do you typically tell people like when they're coming into your studio, if they ask questions like, hey, Bob, I saw in this video, like you should be doing it this way.
Right.
Like what's normally the type of way that you handle, you know, somebody coming in with questions like that? Or do you really tailor everybody's workout around, because I know when I was doing lessons with you, like it was tailored around me specifically.
Right.
Like what's your approach with that?
Right. Yeah, that's an awesome question. And it's such an important one nowadays because, you know, noise being the key word, you said everything out there. Unfortunately, a majority of it is noise. Like there can be some legit information out there with influencers and things like that, but there's so much out there. And unfortunately, in our world today, people are looking for such quick fixes because our culture gets people so unhealthy from sedentary lifestyles to just poor food quality, processed foods, things like that. Like most people are out of shape, are sick, are having so many health issues. But because of our stressful lifestyle, everyone wants the 6-minute abs, but it's even more so now. Now it's like 6-second abs and stuff. So of course it's so easy now. We're so saturated by going anywhere online, especially social media, with all of this information, and even the legitimate stuff is not well presented because it sounds so good to people, and you see all these really attractive, in shape people out there. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, well, I should be doing that exercise and eating this, and I'm going to be in shape like that, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. And then people try it for a day or two, or
get all jazzed up and see how hard it is.
Yeah, and then it doesn't work, and then they go back to square one or even worse, and it is not a good environment there. And with what we do, which is, to be honestly, risky, and it sometimes hurts our business, we have a very old school mentality. It's about physical activity. It's about just eating natural foods. It's about doing basic standard exercises and gradually building up a progression on there. So, you know, when you come in, you're not doing all those exercises that you see all over social media. It's not flashy stuff. It's very basic stuff. It's body weight. It's slow, high repetition kind of things that are meant to stabilize the body. But it's not flashy. It's not some crazy burpee where people have got, you know.
You're not doing the plate, the chest,
that
chest
kind
press
of thing. Yeah, like there's none of that. It's very basic. But people who come in all of a sudden start to realize, like, wow, why was that so difficult? You just had me do 2 or 3 basic exercises with my body, and I've been trying to do all these influencer exercises for 6 months, and this was more difficult than that. Like, what is going on with that? And then as I explain how the body works and that kind of thing, they start to appreciate it more. But it's very hard to see that because it doesn't look all flashy and cool at first. Like, we get to those exercises, people who have been training for months and years and things. Like, there's some extreme crazy stuff, but you have to get to that point. You have to stabilize and strengthen the body to be able to do that. So I
have personally experienced a couple of ass whoopings from you and Tracy.
Right.
And they were simple.
Yes. Yeah. There was nothing fancy about it at all.
Nothing fancy. And I walked out and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That sucked.
So I'm glad you appreciate
in a good
that.
way.
So it is, nowadays it is so difficult because everyone sees that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've had people not train with us because, you know, immediately we didn't start doing those kind of exercises, even with trying to explain things. But
I was going to ask you if you ever get that. Like, people, the expectation level is different for everybody nowadays because of what they see on social media.
Yes. Yeah.
That sort of thing. So do you find that a lot of when somebody is entering into being a client of yours, do you have to do a lot of like expectation setting and like mindset training and stuff like that, like setting the record straight, giving them like, hey, you may see it this way, but we're doing it this way, and there's a lot of like kind of teaching more than anything?
You know, it's almost as much de-education from what's out there on social media.
That's a good way to put it.
In addition to educating, you know, the right way there, and setting those expectations, because as you said, like, you know, when you came in, we tailored it to you, and that's what happens at our studio. People tell us their background, their goals and everything, and we take our experience and education and take it to that for what you need to be doing. But will tell people from the get-go, like, okay, here are your goals. Here's what you need to be doing. And it's not what you expect. This isn't going to happen in 2 months. This is probably going to take 6 months. Or if this isn't going to happen in a year, this is going to take 3 years. And you have to build up this way. And it's not doing these kind of exercises and all kinds of stuff. And it's eating this way, and it's making those baby steps. Because if you can gradually incorporate those tiny baby steps, it's a lot more manageable. And then in the long run, those baby steps add up. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm feeling better and looking better, and I'm eating better, and I'm practicing these better habits, and you're getting to where you need to be. Because then all of a sudden, 6 months or a year down the road, when you've adopted all these habits, when you're feeling much better, when you're looking much better, where just your mindset is better, it's habits you adopt for a lifetime.
Of course.
But the people who do the fad diets and the influencer workouts and things like that.
Right back into it.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot what the stats are, but it's like 80 to 90% of people who do all that kind of quick fix stuff, it's just they lose all of that progress, or they don't make any, or get really frustrated and stuff. So it's a big thing we're trying to push. So that's, as our studio evolves and as our experience evolved, we've realized that's more and more important to actually go back to basics. Because you look at it, the fittest people on the planet, were people that are around thousands and thousands of years ago. Like, there wasn't advanced medical health care, and people, died by the time they were 30, and, disease and things like that. There were challenges then, but in terms of being in shape, people were eating processed foods. And no matter what anyone was doing, you had to move constantly to survive. You had to build and hunt and gather and all that kind of stuff. And it was a very healthy way to be. And our culture right now is just not like that. So we need to pull back from there. So that's why, when you see some fancy influencer video and you've got someone who's, working a desk 60 hours a week and eating fast food and processed food all the time, that's the last thing they need. They just need to start moving more, to start having someone guide them to move like this, to do these kind of exercises, start picking up these kind of habits and stuff. So that is a big thing with us, is how things have changed with the internet. So
that's good. And sticking with the basics is something that I like. Even in my business, it's sometimes it's hilarious. Like, I've had a couple of people that have been in here that I've interviewed them that have different types of businesses. And the natural thing to think is like, well, as I grow in business, I need to get more advanced at what I do. And obviously, like, there's an evolution process to it, but you still can't forget the basics. Like, no matter how advanced you get, no matter how big you get, you always got to remember the basics and continue to do them, even if you're at the level of fitness that, say, you were even in, or whatever, or I'm at, or whatever. That stuff's important, but you start with the basics. And I love, just every time I onboard a client, I will tell them, keep it simple. That's like, when you work with me, it's going to be simple. It's going to be very simple. The way, like, you want to shoot video, we're going to keep it simple. You don't need to build out a studio. You don't need to buy $8,000 cameras. You can record stuff on your phone, because this is the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think, and to me specifically in the fitness realm, like, I've been on a fitness journey for probably 6 or 7 years. And have now finally gotten to a place where, like, and it's probably been within the last year or so, but I'm healthy. But like you said, the more important thing is that the habits that I developed over that time period, because I wasn't looking, and I know how I am. Like, I think a lot of this stems from self-awareness, like knowing yourself, knowing what you want, as opposed to like what other people are telling you should have. And for me, I just knew that if I'm looking for a quick fix, I am going to fall right back. Like, I'm going to divert back to the lifestyle I had before. But if I made simple, small changes along the way, then I would develop not only a healthy lifestyle, but I would, like, almost completely eliminate the risk of falling back to where I was before.
100%.
And that's, that's from, in the kitchen, but that's also in the gym, and the way that I treat my body and that sort of thing. So now I feel like, it's not that it's easy, but it's easier than ever to maintain my health. Because if somebody says, like, hey, you want to go out for ice cream? I might be like, well, I had ice cream yesterday. I'm not going to do that again today. Like, I need to probably wait another week or so. Like, it's easier for me to say no to things, which, again, like the de-education, I also equate it to saying no. Also, like, being able to say no to things is important in the fitness world. But like the type of people that you work with, what's an ideal, like, somebody comes in and they're like, you're like, this is one of my favorite clients. Because obviously we could always go back to, like, sometimes I'm sure as a trainer, you want it more than the person that you're training. Like, you want their success more than they want it, which obviously goes back to mindset, right?
But
when you're dealing with maybe that type of person versus somebody that comes in and they're like, let's go, Bob, I'm ready.
Yeah.
What's the kind of like the difference there? Do you enjoy working with the harder people to work with that may not have their mind right and you're like looking at it as a challenge?
Yeah.
Or, kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Like the difference is, I'm sure you see all types of
Sure.
motivation in people.
Yeah. Well, to all my clients listening, you're all my favorite. So just putting that out there, you are all my favorite, saying there. With it, a wide variety of people that I work with, because I work with kids and senior citizens and everyone in between, and athletes and people with all kinds of health issues, diabetes, cerebral palsy, cancer, you name it, it's all across the board. So many different fitness, health backgrounds, and then personalities to go along with it. So,
and not to mention body shapes and sizes.
And yes,
not even
absolutely. It sometimes it is more challenging. When people just maybe they're there for the wrong reasons, or they were forced into it, or maybe they're just like, this isn't not my thing, or maybe not the right time for them to be doing that, and it can be really challenging. When people are just, you can see they don't want to be there, or things like that. And that can be very challenging. And it's something with my job, I hope, as you said, with, my personality or my education, I hope maybe I can help them get past that kind of stuff. So it's not enjoying training with them, but, it's something I hope I can help out more. And it's a lot more of a challenge.
Well, one thing I think you do really well, just again, from my experience of working out with you, and Tracy does this really good too, is that you guys seem to be able to kind of sniff out the type of the training, like encouragement.
Yes,
is what I would say, because somebody like me, like if I'm on a Peloton, I'm not the type of person that I'm turning on a workout and I want to hear the trainer like, you got it, we got this next hill. I don't want that. I just want to work. I know I'm gonna bike 5 miles on this thing.
Yeah,
I don't need somebody whispering in my ear or yelling at me in front of my face to tell me to do it.
Yeah.
To motivate me.
Yeah.
I just need some heavy metal.
Right.
And then I'm
right,
going.
Go, yeah.
But you guys are really good at being able to kind of sniff that out, I felt like. And so for me, that was what was one of the most enjoyable parts of going to your studio. It's like, I don't have somebody like, you got this, one more. It's like, all right, Josh, let's go. You got another one.
Yeah.
And then we were done. And it's like you were able to kind of sniff that out. Is that something you guys actively look for when you're training people?
100%. It's a big part of our training styles. Even like one of my certifications is a behavioral change specialist, which goes into the psychology behind training.
Yeah,
and
that's huge.
It's, there's a lot of psychology and science behind that, but also just personality. And it's not just assessing physically what people are doing, it's assessing their personalities over time. And so we'll adapt to that, because you're right. Sometimes people do want the kitten poster, hang in there, baby, kind of thing. Other people just want me to shut the hell up and just be like, correct my form when needed, and that's that.
Yeah.
Get me in and out, and going from there. Sometimes it's a little more drill sergeant kind of thing. Sometimes it's a little bit more personal there, and adapting to what works best. And that's what we evolve with the training as well, because that's going to motivate people the most if personality-wise and motivation-wise it's clicking in that respect. So we evolve that over time and, adjust day to day. Sometimes someone's having a great day, sometimes people are having a bad day.
Yeah.
And again, if you're all joyous and happy and go, they're not going to respond to that. Yeah. And you got to ease things in and just listen a little bit more. So we'll go through there, adapting with it, and even, going along with what you said too, about working with a variety of type of people and what's your favorite. It's interesting seeing an athlete progress, a kid or a teenager, or someone go past the disease to where, hey, we don't have to use blood pressure medication anymore, or we've changed or the amount of diabetes medication or insulin you have to use because of the workouts. Like, it's awesome to see all that kind of stuff progress. So in terms of going back to saying like my favorite type of client, it goes along with all of that, but I would say my favorite type of person is the person who comes in of any background or age or ability or goal, and someone coming in who doesn't think they're capable of doing stuff, who maybe isn't on the big fitness spectrum of being all super in shape or things like that, and maybe they don't think enough of themselves to be capable of what they need to do, and seeing them transition into being like capable. And I'm not talking about being supermodels or bodybuilder or anything. That doesn't matter whatsoever. It doesn't matter how much weight they're lifting as years go by. Just seeing the transition of being that confidence building up, and being I'm capable. And that is my absolute favorite thing, just because it stems a little bit from my background too, because I was always the
relatability.
Yeah, I was always the tiny, shy, skinny kid with glasses that, a lot of people ignored and things like that. And, I built up a little bit just to gain some confidence and things. So I love seeing that, just people take control of themselves and their lives, because all of a sudden it's not just about doing squats better or, having a little more muscle or stamina. All of a sudden, those kind of skills translate into relationships they're in, into their careers, just everything in society in general. And nowadays, there's more and more of that needed. It's not, with everything that's going on, people just need to be, more confident in themselves in a good way, to where it's like, hey, I'm taking better care of myself. I'm going to take better care of the people around me and that kind of stuff. And even, going along with the great theme of your podcast with that impact, that's what it stems into, is having that kind of impact in life. Because again, it's really not about how well someone's doing in that sport or how much weight they lost or anything. It's about taking care of life around us. It's a big thing. I know that sounds maybe a little melodramatic, but I truly believe that. I think that's an awesome and powerful thing. And it really starts with just taking better care of yourselves and doing things that you didn't think you were capable of.
Well, one of the things, so the purpose of the podcast is obviously to highlight people that are impacting others. And one of the things that as a fitness trainer that's highly important to understand is so obviously you are impacting directly the person that you're training, but like you just explained, it affects everything in your life, including relationships. So you being able to change somebody's life in the physical aspect of their life can also impact the rest of the people around their spouse or their children, their friends, their work relationships. And so that's the whole point, is one point of impact can make thousands of ripples down the line and ultimately infinitely. Because then what if they send one of their friends to your studio because they're like, I had a great experience with Bob and he's changed my life. You should go try it too. So now you're impacting another. It's just, there's so many points of connection that can make, from impact. And obviously physical health is one of those biggest aspects of life that people really need to focus on, because it does truly impact every bit of your life.
It really does. And even going into metal, it's part of why
I would say we are running out of time.
It's getting close. So
we need to talk about music.
This is a perfect transition to go into music. Well, heavy metal fitness is more than just a pun on heavy metal and lifting and things like that. Both my wife and I are big rock and metal fans and stuff. And going with what you just said, we have one of my favorite bands, Hatebreed. We have their song "Own Your World." We have a quote on the wall that says, "One flame can light a million," and it describes that. That's the heavy metal essence of our studio, and why we have it called that, because all of these lyrics and the struggles that bands have went through and the empowering stuff, and it's so cool. And that's why we have it like that. And that's why with the renovation and expansion, everything that we did, we've got band posters and all our concert outings and things like that. You guys are up there actually, believe it or not. From we've got pictures from all our things up there. So you guys are permanently part of the studio. Awesome. But we have all that there, the quotes, everything, and things like that. So
for sure,
it's a huge aspect.
So I want to spend the last 5 minutes talking about music a little bit, and the way that it's kind of impacted. For me, it's kind of funny, because me personally, growing up in high school and all that, I listened to rap. I listened to hip hop.
Okay.
I still do to this day a little bit.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the middle, there's a whole long story behind this that I could spend a lot of time on. But right after high school, I ended up dating this girl, and it was a really tough breakup.
Yeah.
And I started to hear Falling in Reverse was one.
Yeah.
That Ronnie Radke would do some rapping in his music.
Yeah,
and
a great blend of hip hop and metal.
And I always love Linkin Park for that reason too. And so Linkin Park I always listened to, in high school and that sort of thing. But I was really introduced to that world of rock and metal somewhere around 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And then I started listening to more and more and more. And now it's the main genre that I listen to.
Yeah.
As a whole, obviously, there's 25 different subgenres underneath rock and metal.
Yeah, metal is expansive. So,
but I know how much of an impact it had on my life, and everybody thinks it's rock and they're screaming and there's heavy breakdowns. so negative, and like there is that type of music, obviously.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for me, it's just like if I'm stressed out, I could turn on some like Motionless in White and just like I'm cool.
Yeah, it's meditative.
It's meditative. Yes, exactly.
Right.
How do you think that like metal really affects like a person and their brain and the way they kind of carry themselves? And
Yeah. Well, there's documentaries, there's articles, there's interviews like of that psychological validity behind all that.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. And, it really stems from, metal in general. The people who create the art of metal, often are people who are outcast, who have had, mental health issues and have struggled in life and came from very difficult backgrounds. And when you listen to all this stuff, the older I got, the more I listen to these lyrics, and I'm just like, and it is so relatable because it's people like actually being honest about what they're going through in their backgrounds. And yeah, as you pointed out, most people think it's scary and loud and crazy and disgusting and awful, but it's all one big metaphor for the things we all go through. There's terrible things in life and scary things in life. And these bands are representing that and allowing us to vent that. And that's huge for me because I'll be lifting some weights, listening to the heaviest death metal stuff out there. And it's therapeutic for me because when I'm listening to that, and it's a second language, like the scream, sometimes most people can understand.
Sometimes you just got to murmur the lyrics.
Right. But it's something that, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's something I'm going through right now, or that's something I went through 20 years ago. And it really helps. You're like, wow, I'm not alone with this. And that is such a huge thing. And again, that's why we have all these quotes and bands in there. And I tell people all the time, it's not just about our favorite bands. I mean, these are our life stories. These are people who've been through that kind of stuff, and every challenging workout you had and every scary thing you're facing health-wise in life. There's something in there with heavy metal that's relatable to it.
So a lot of bands are just excellent philosophers.
Yes, they are. Like I mentioned, like Hatebreed, like he should be doing like TED Talks all the time. Really? Jamie Josta from there. Like it is so empowering and so awesome, but not from that overly positive, like kiddie poster kind of thing.
Right.
It's like, okay,
like real stuff.
Yeah, this is rough, and this is like, these are sensitive lyrics and these are sensitive topics, and it's gripping stuff, but it causes us to question what we seriously need to question to make things better for all of us. So
of course. Yeah. Last question.
Yeah.
And then we got to wrap up.
All right. Well, we might have to have a separate metal podcast
for sure.
A separate metal podcast talking music. So,
what's one show or concert that you will never forget, and why?
Oh wow, I'm as you know, I'm a
just
huge,
one.
Yeah, just one. Because that's tough. I'm a huge concert fan. I've been to so many shows over the years. With it, that is such a.
It's loaded.
It really is, because I've had so many moments like that. Well, you know what? Maybe you can narrow it down a little bit. Would it be something based on like the podcast, like something that was more impactful in my life?
Impactful. Yeah, that's a good one.
Like something
What's the most impactful one that you've been to?
Okay. I would say with that, because again, the list could go on, but the first one that springs to mind is the band Disturbed, who I've seen many times, and some great shows, wonderful band, but just a specific moment. It was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and they had a moment, one of their songs about mental health and about challenges and depression and suicide and things like that. And before they played the song, they said, who out here has struggled with depression? Who here has attempted suicide? Who has had someone commit suicide in their lives? Who has someone with them right now who's struggling through that? And it was like a moment of silence, and everyone lifted up their hand in there. And it was like even now I'm kind of getting choked up, like thinking about it, just because like, wow, like we're not alone, because that's something that everyone feels alone with when you're going through that. And even the band and him, like on stage, like he could barely get through the song, like thinking about that. And just that moment of silence and having 30,000 people like raise their hands up, like that was an impactful moment. I'm like, music is unbelievable. And as Disturbed exclaims, music is a weapon, and that's how you take back control of things. So that was a huge moment for me, just to really see that. It was like everything I always thought about music and what I loved and stuff, but then like that grand spectacle of it being like, holy shit, this is amazing. So that's one of them. Again, we need a separate podcast to go through for both of us for other concert experiences that we've had.
Adam, you ready to produce another podcast?
We appreciate it. That would be awesome. So,
Bob, this has been spectacular, man. I would love to have you back again soon. We talked about getting Tracy on. So we'll make sure that we make that happen.
Absolutely.
In the near future. But thank you so much for sharing everything that you have. There's so much more to delve into. But, if somebody wanted to connect with you, learn more about if they're in the Northwest Indiana region, the studio's in Highland, Indiana, right off of 41 and that Main Street.
Yes, we're just east of Target and Whole Foods in that big shopping complex in Highlands.
What's the best way to learn more about heavy metal fitness?
I got our website, heavymetalfitness.com. If you do a Google search, it should be the first one up there. My email address is bob@heavymetalfitness.com. My phone number 219-808-0564. So if you go to the website, there's also a contact form on there. So if you forget all that, you can also contact Josh too, and he can give you a warning for what the workouts are like. But any of those would be great ways to reach out, and feel free to contact and come in. You can try out just a consultation and assessment, and we can talk about some stuff and what you need changes in for your life. So.
And you still do the mosh pit sessions?
We still do the mosh pit sessions. That's all on the website. 9 a.m. Saturdays.
I was gonna say, I would say, like, if you guys are a little bit more curious about the way the studio works and like kind of introducing you guys, I think that was a really great way to kind of like enter into that realm, because working out with a group of people, but you encourage people to go at their own pace and that sort of thing. And then if you wanted the one-on-one stuff, obviously now you're introduced and that sort of thing. I think that's a good entry point.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. Well, Bob, thank you again. I look forward to having you back again soon.
Awesome. It's my pleasure.
To the studio again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to all the listeners for hearing me out here. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening and joining. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the podcast, and then also check out all the links down in the description below. You can connect with Bob. All that information is going to be down below for you. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining in and listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you.